Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. A bitch is back talking about books. Before I talk about those books, I just want to start off by saying I really appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for those of you who liked and commented on my last YouTube video. It really did mean a lot to me, and it kind of feels really crazy that actually, get responses back to my videos, just because when I started this YouTube channel, I literally did not tell anybody that I was starting a YouTube channel. I'm very embarrassed of this YouTube channel, I'm not gonna lie, just because it's just me talking about books and things like that, and to know that people actually watch it and comment back is just really insane to me, even though it's a small number, right? Like, in the grand scheme of things, 400 plus subscribers, it's not even enough to monetize or anything, you know what I mean? But I love that. I don't know, I just feel like this is my happy place to be here and to like post on YouTube. Oh my god, not me about to cry. Okay, cut the cameras. I can't believe I'm that bitch. It does really mean a lot to me, so I just want to thank you guys so much for that. I am in a different position just because, sue me, I want to try something different. I'm using my phone today just because I don't like the way that my camera looks, and sometimes it goes in and out of focus, and I just really don't like that. So I'm going to be using my phone. Sue me. And I'm in a different position because I want to sit down in my chair. Sue me, okay? I have also updates on life. It's going to be my birthday this weekend, and I've never done anything for my birthday. Yeah, I'm a Leo. I feel like that's pretty on the nose for me just because I'm posting on fucking YouTube. Yeah, I like attention, whatever. That's kind of like updates on my life, so I'm gonna like be finally actually celebrating my birthday, because I literally every single year I've just always stayed home. I've never even gotten a cake. I just wake up, go about my day, probably watch YouTube, probably watch Netflix, and then eat and sleep. And it's just like any other day. My family doesn't celebrate anything really. It's coming up and I am very excited about it, and things are looking up. Today, what we're going to be talking about is two books, and if you can see from the title, it is going to be books based on Chris Evans, or books inspired by Chris Evans. Insane that there is a niche for that, but it's basically just two different books. The first one we're going to be talking about is Set on You, and this isn't the main character, the main guy character is inspired by Chris Evans during, I think it's like during Endgame. I don't know, there's like a specific picture of Chris Evans that everybody points out. I'll try to find it, and if I can, I'm gonna put it up here. But yeah, it's like him with his long hair and going through that phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the Set on You Chris Evans, inspired Chris Evans for the Set on You book. And then the second book we're going to be talking about is inspired by Chris Evans. Funny you should ask, the book is inspired by an article. The article was an interview with Chris Evans. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But yes, first we're going to be talking about Set on You. So what Set on You is about is it's a rom-com about a plus-sized Asian or Hapa, whatever you like to say, like half Asian, half white, plus-sized influencer. She posts on Instagram, and there's this whole thing with like influencers and making money off of being an influencer and the career of that and things like that, and it goes kind of into that in this book, which I think is kind of interesting. It is an enemies to lovers gym romance, so I feel like it's a little bit set in reality in that way, because I feel like a lot of people do meet their significant others in the gym, if you are really big gym people, just in general. It's an enemies to lovers, just as much as a rom-com can be enemies to lovers. I honestly don't find rom-coms to be real enemies to lovers. It's just more like, oh, an initial disliking to lovers. That's really what it is. So it starts out because Crystal, this plus-size influencer, has a feud with this like really jacked guy over the squat rack at the gym, the good squat rack. And if y'all ever gone to the gym, you know how people are with their squat racks. Like, they are always taken up. And anyway, I'm not gonna get into that because I go to the gym and the squat rack is a big thing. So yeah, that's basically the premise of this book. So the guy, his name is Scott. After having this kind of back and forth, eyeballing each other at the gym every single day and giving each other the dirty eye like, oh, I hate you, from far across the gym, there's an obvious tension between Scott and Crystal, the two main characters. And then one day this boils over in the guys' gym locker room where they're hating each other, screaming at each other, and then they make out with each other. You know how things progress that way. You know how things progress. So yeah, that's how the romance starts, and I thought that this premise was really, really fun, really interesting. I like the messaging that this has, and I'll go a little bit more in depth with that. But I feel like after this initial premise and that initial tension boiling over, this book just feels so stagnant in my opinion. I just felt like I was really invested in the beginning, and then after that it just got so boring to me, and it just really sucks that it does, because I really did like the messaging of the book. I honestly barely remember most of the book, to be honest. Like, in my opinion, I can barely remember it, and it sucks because I've generally been feeling this way about romance books recently. I don't think it's because I hate the genre. This is literally my favorite genre in the entire world, and I will read trash romance and I will be so invested in it. I think it's just the way that, because I'm very influenced by TikTok, it's the way that TikTok promotes books is just not really great in my opinion. I'll kind of go into that at the end of this video, but yeah, this book just felt really slow to me. This couple in general, I wasn't really vibing with it. I feel like there weren't any specific characteristics that Crystal or Scott had that felt very distinct. They both felt pretty stagnant as characters. The biggest character trait that each of them had was that they were stubborn. That was literally it. They're just both stubborn people, and you're like, oh my god, like they're meant for each other? I don't know. What I do remember about this book is that it's basically just miscommunications and different situations that happened for way too long, and conflicts that happened for way too long. They just dragged on, and it really felt cliche. I quoted this. I remember having this quote, and it felt like I've read this quote in specific in so many other romance books before, is, what can I do to convince you to trust me? And it just felt really cliche, and it just wasn't hitting. You know, there's supposed to be these like really big grand emotional gestures or grand emotional speeches, and eye roll, you know, just because I feel like the relationship just wasn't great, which is funny and ironic because Crystal herself says in the book that they're a simple couple and they don't really need to elaborate on things to be content. They're not this like grand big couple. They're just a regular schmegular couple, which is part of this book, but reading it wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun for me. Like, I would rather read a trash November 9 ass book than read something boring, in my opinion, but also see the books for what they are. You know what I mean? I do really, really love the messaging. And also the romance just really felt surface level. Like, they didn't really go deep into each person's internal conflicts that much that I can remember. And just the romance, all in all, felt really surface level. The main thing I think this book was really trying to do was talk about the body neutrality movement and how, you know, your body is basically a temple just for you to breathe, to do things, to be able. And I really like that messaging. I really actually love that messaging because I feel like the idea of body positivity is just, I feel a little put off with specifically body positivity because, yeah, we should see every body as beautiful, but I feel like there's so much pressure with the body positivity aspect of things to always feel like you're beautiful all the time, when in reality, no one feels beautiful all the time. I think if you guys watch Euphoria, it's exactly what I'm talking about, is that scene with Kat and all of these influencers shouting in her ear, like, be positive, you're great, you're amazing, like, be hot, etc., etc. When in reality, it's like, shut up, I just want to sit in my room and cry, you know? Like, I just want to feel ugly sometimes, which is okay. And I really like that messaging because I think that type of messaging is in this book, that like, just be grateful that you have a body. Just be grateful that your body does stuff for you. And I really like that aspect of it. And I just wish that this really, really good message and this great representation for, first of all, the Asian community, for the plus size community, and all those other things like that. I wish that representation, all of that was packaged into a better book, because this book was just not it for me. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars for this book, and that's kind of my review on Set on You. The next book I'm going to talk about is Funny You Should Ask. This is based off the interview with Chris Evans before he became the new Captain America, except in this book, they kind of switched the article that it's based off of to be the new James Bond. So let me give you the premise of the book. There is a journalist named Chani, and I will feel really embarrassed if I say her name wrong because they make that a really big point in this book. Chani is Jewish, and apparently no one says her name correctly. So if I'm butchering her name, I apologize deeply, but I have only been reading her name. Okay? So I don't know how to pronounce her name if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but that is how I've been pronouncing her name, is Chani. So Chani, she is a journalist, and this book goes into a then and now, aka past and present timeline, where it was 10 years previous. Chani meets this star, this like mega uber superstar who is about to play the new James Bond. His name is Gabe Parker. Gabe Parker is this like, oh my god, movie star, like everybody wants him. He's insanely hot, gorgeous, etc., etc. And Chani is a journalist who is supposed to interview Gabe before he becomes the new James Bond to basically have good press about him. And they have this initial meeting the 10 years previous, and an article gets written about Gabe and about that interview and about what happens after that interview, because in that interview, in that article that Chani ends up writing, is how Gabe and Chani end up having a relationship that the public doesn't really know if anything happened during the interview, like if they hooked up and things like that. But there was this chemistry that Chani and Gabe had in this interview 10 years past that people have been kind of speculating on for 10 years, right? And so 10 years later, it's the present, and they finally meet back up to hash things out. If you've ever read that Chris Evans article, the real actual Chris Evans article that an actual journalist spent a weekend with Chris Evans partying with him, you will see that there is actually an insane amount of similarities between the real article and the article that's written in this. I was like, oh, there is no doubt about the fact that it was inspired by this Chris Evans article. No doubt at all. Because I feel like there were actual instances in that article, the real article, that happens in the fake book article. Actual lines in that article in this. I was like, are they gonna get copyrighted? Because this feels very similar to the real article. Okay, let me just start off by saying that I actually really enjoyed this book a lot more than I did with Set on You. But I just also really wasn't feeling this book either, which sucks because I feel like this book had a lot of hype around it. Just because it was based off Chris Evans, it does have that then and now timeline. In general, the characters, once again, just were not developed. And I eat that shit up in romance novels. Like, I need my characters to be real characters. Because in a romance novel, that's basically all you have. You have two people connecting. Why? And you need to understand that why. And I feel like that why people connect is a big thing in romance novels. It should be the main thing. It should be the only thing. It should be the most important thing. And I feel like when you don't have really good character development and you don't understand why these two people love each other, it just ends up not being the best romance novel, unless it's a trashy one and it's just really fun to read the chaos. But in this instance, it just wasn't hitting the mark. Again, it was really slow to read and the characters were not developed. And I think that the writing in general was actually pretty well written. I don't know how to explain it, but it does give a sense of Emily Henry to the writing. I really feel like actual writing and the prose felt Emily Henry-esque, and I don't know what it was about that, but it felt like that. Just the book was not it. Like, I don't know. There was something about the book that I didn't really like, that the characters didn't feel Emily Henry-esque, but the writing did. But in general, just like with Set on You, I feel like the relationship felt really surface level. They go through this then and now timeline, so technically they don't really even know each other because they had that weekend 10 years ago to like talk to each other, and then they see each other or hear about each other throughout those 10 years but don't really talk. And then they have the now timeline again. Chani says this in the book. She says that, oh, you know, we're basically strangers because we've only seen each other a total of 6 days total. And Gabe responds to her saying, I know you. I read that, and I know it was the author and everything being self-reflexive and being self-aware, but I was just like, no, you don't. you literally don't know her. Like, because I didn't know her. I didn't know these characters. They have small things about them, which you understand. Like Gabe, he's a struggling alcoholic, and they go through that whole thing. And Chani, she's basically a writer who feels like she's not enough. Chani, she had this like ex-boyfriend who just was also a writer and never made her feel like she was enough. So that's basically her whole personality trait. Chani's whole personality trait is just ranting about random things and doesn't feel like she's good enough. AKA me. Chani's me, okay? And yeah, Gabe's just like a struggling alcoholic who feels like no one's ever really seen him, the real him, and has always been in the limelight, and he likes being an actor because he can play pretend, etc, etc, you know, that whole thing. But in general, I just really felt like I didn't really get to know these characters, and I just really couldn't understand, especially in the very beginning, right? Like the 10 years previous timeline, when Gabe has such an interest in Chani, I couldn't understand for the life of me why he liked her so much. What was it about her so much that he instantly fell in love with her? Like, I don't know, I just really couldn't really put it down. It's just all accumulated to the fact that they were both infatuated with each other's work. Because Gabe says this to Chani, is that, oh, I've read about you, or I've done my research about you, Chani, and I know about your work because she's a writer, right? And she's read Chani's blog posts, read about her life, read about her ex-boyfriend, and Chani the same thing. Chani grew up in love with Gabe Parker, basically a fangirl over Gabe Parker. But other than being each other's fanboy and fangirl, there isn't really much there to the relationship. And I feel like that's kind of the problem with these like celebrity relationship things, is that you don't really get to know the characters. And I feel like the only time I really felt like it was done, this celebrity thing was done well, was in something like Evelyn Hugo, where it's about loss and love and other things like that, where you really got a feeling for like how the characters persevered. I just didn't really feel that in this, and I just felt like they were both fangirling over each other the entire time, but you just couldn't for the life of you understand why. I also do think that the pacing was just really, really not good. The then and now timeline, I feel like, was really detrimental to the pacing, because you'd follow one timeline and they'd show you a little bit of what's going on in each other's lives in whatever timeline you're in, and then they go back to either the past or the present. It just felt really stagnant in that way. The pacing was just not it for me. And then the articles in between, they had articles for every single chapter, and I feel like that was also a detriment to the pacing of the book. The conflict was just really annoying to me. There was only one or two conflicts, and the conflict was basically the missed chance, because what we find out in the book, so I will be spoiling a little bit, even though you find out about it in the very beginning of the book, is that after this instant connection that Chani and Gabe had in the beginning, in this interview 10 years ago, after that instant connection, you find out that, oh, she goes on the premiere for his movie, and then they like hang out with each other, and Chani goes to another party that Gabe has, and they have this thing that they both don't really acknowledge, but they both feel, and they both kind of like each other but won't acknowledge it. And then after the article gets posted, Gabe gets married right away to another actress. And then Chani, within those 10 years, gets married to her ex-boyfriend, Jeremy. It's always the J names, by the way, who are the problems. J names being Jacinda and Jeremy. The two people that Chani and Gabe get married to, it's always the damn J names, I'm telling you. And so, yeah, Jacinda gets married to Gabe. Chani gets married to Jeremy within those 10 years, and it's this idea of missed chances, right? It's like a missed chance romance, which I am telling you, I eat up in romance novels. I am a sucker for longing. I am a sucker for missed chances. Like, oh, if only you were in the right place at the right time, and etc, etc. And it's that longing that you feel that really breaks your heart. But to me, in this book, I was just so annoyed at the idea of these missed chances, because that was the only problem. And when they go back to the present timeline, this is the time where they can finally air out all of the conflicts that they had been suppressing for the last 10 years, right? They haven't really seen each other that much in 10 years, and they've been suppressing their emotions for each other. And this suppression of emotion just gets dragged on for 200 pages. It's so annoying to me because it's something that can be explained in 1 to 2 sentences. And it does get explained in 1 to 2 sentences. And those explanations just didn't make me feel anything because we've been dragging out this explanation like forever. And I was just like, oh my God, can we just get to the point already? The whole entire book is Chani and Gabe walking around in circles, talking around their feelings instead of just letting each other know what they're feeling. It's worse than miscommunication. It's no communication. And it wasn't even that bad. I'm being dramatic right now. But, you know, I had just finished this book yesterday and it really bored me. I don't know. Some parts I just felt like I really wanted to skim, but I wanted to give a thorough review, so I didn't. But yeah, this is just my opinions. This is what I felt. And it sucks that I felt this way because I feel like a lot of people really did enjoy this book, but I just thought it was average. I really feel like the biggest positive this book has for it is the writing, but the premise was so great. And for a romance book, I just didn't feel any of the emotions, and that's something that I need. So I gave Set On You a 2 out of 5 stars. I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I know I'm being a little bit rough on this book, but it just, I don't know, there was something missing with it. And then this is the point that I want to end this video on. So that's kind of my reviews on those 2 books. In general, both of these books had amazing premises, great premises. The execution was just not there. And I think that where I'm going with this is that I got both of these books off of TikTok. And the way that TikTok promotes books is, I feel like, not really that great, because the way they promote books is they show a picture of the book and then they'll do this whole little thing. They'll do this little thing like, you know, in front of the camera and talk about the different tropes and different genres that the book is. They'll put a quote of what's inside the book and they'll put maybe the premise of the book, aka everything that I feel like these 2 books had potential in. But the actual inside of the book just never really hits the mark, or it hits the mark less than if you were to see a different type of promotion of another book, if that makes sense. With the way that TikTok promotes books, you get everything that's great about it. You get the premise, like all of the things that need to be hit that makes a good book good gets hit in the promotion and within the book, but the execution is just not there. There's just something missing to it. And that's why I feel like the books themselves just fall short a lot of the time, or at least for me recently. It's just the problem that I've been kind of seeing recently with TikTok books, but I don't know if that's just me or if just coincidentally I have been reading not as great TikTok books, just because every single book I read recently is a TikTok book. Most of the books I've read, I've gone off of TikTok just because I'm on that app all the time and it's really done me great in my life. Like, I've found some of my absolute favorite books off of TikTok, and I always do believe that popular books are popular for a reason, right? And TikTok promotes mainly popular books. And I feel like maybe where I'm going with this is I realize that the books that I've really liked off of TikTok were already popular before. For example, like, I know, A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series, has a lot of problems with it, but I honestly, like, don't care because I love those books so much. And other books that were really already popular, like the Six of Crows duology and other things like that, they were already popular before they got on BookTok. They were just promoted more on there. Whereas books that are maybe newer or not as well known that are on TikTok and get promoted on TikTok miss the mark when you read them, because maybe they wouldn't have been popular if they weren't promoted on BookTok. And I think we can say that for, I'll give examples. I guess you could say The Love Hypothesis. Even though I really did think that book was really cute, it's not the most amazing end-all be-all romance book that there is, but people were promoting the crap out of that, you know? And other things like that. I feel like there's a lot of bad books that are promoted on TikTok just because maybe the premise is great. I think recently, really recently, we're seeing this with Alex Astor's new book that hasn't come out yet, Lightlark. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into that whole spiel. I want to read the book for myself and make my own opinions. But yeah, sorry, I did go on a ramble there, but this is the end to this review. Books based off of Chris Evans, both of them inspired by a dream of a man, but missed the mark on creating that actual dream. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.